Hey guys, my name is Kris Barocsi. Welcome to Gear Corner. Today, I want to figure out if a real clone sounds any better than a DIY clone. This is worth over $1,000 and this is worth around $50. An actual Klon KTR versus my self-built DIY clone pedal, which is, well, it's just a clone. And before you say, come on dude, there's no way a DIY pedal will sound as good as a real clone, well, I want to talk both about the KTR, the Klon KTR, and my self-built DIY kit pedal. I want to show you how they sound, how they compare, and I want to show you the circuit board, what's going on inside them. I also want to share my thoughts around the end of this video, which might be surprising, especially after you've heard how they sound and seen what's inside them. In case you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell, and check out the description box under the video for all kinds of additional infos, timestamps, gear links, etc. and for my merchandise in case you want to support the channel. I'd really appreciate it. First, let's talk about the Klon, the KTR, and, well, a little bit of the history of the Klon pedals. So the guy who makes these is an American engineer. He's called Bill Finnegan, and he started producing the original Klon, the Klon Centaur, in 1994. He developed that pedal for years, and he basically wanted a pedal that doesn't sound like a pedal, but instead it sounds more like your amp, just more cranked. Okay, so it was for musicians who had real nice tube amps and just couldn't allow themselves to crank it even more to have more saturation. That's what the Klon is made for. Yeah, people loved it, so the demand was insane. Bill was just constantly building these, hand wiring these and hand soldering these in his apartment for many, many years. Bill stopped producing the Centaur, the original Klon, in 2008. But he thought, we can make a pedal that sounds like the original Klon, and we can mass produce it. So that's where the KTR comes in. He designed the KTR in like 1 or 2 years, and then in 2008, he started producing these in factories. Because if you take a look inside, this is not a hand soldered pedal. This is an S&D pedal, which means it's a surface mount device, and these circuit boards are made in factories by robots or like machines. And this is a very interesting thing right here. This has a printed circuit board, which I don't know for sure if it changes the tone of a pedal, but I know that there are two camps here. Whether we're talking about guitar players or actual pedal makers. One will say it's the same thing, it's even more stable because it's made by machines, so there's no human failure possible. Like if you hand solder all those joints, You know, there might be one solder joint that's just not that good, and then the pedal doesn't work anymore. So one camp will say it's more efficient, it makes way more sense, and it's more reliable, and it sounds the same. The other camp will say, yeah, there are pros to it. Like, obviously, it's going to be super reliable and everything, but there are cons too. First of all, they say it does not sound the same. It sounds close enough for like a live show or whatever, but if we're talking about identical tones, that's not going to work. I never compared that, so I cannot add anything to it. All I know is that I tend to be able to justify higher price tags for pedals if it's hand wired, because I appreciate the time and all the effort that person that makes those solder joints and thought of the whole design and puts in all the work and all the hours. I can justify a higher price tag if it's a hand-wired pedal or hand-built pedal than if it's an S&D. I don't know about the tone. I never compared them. I don't even really care at this point because I'm a guitar player. All I want is it to work and sound exactly the way I want it. So tone is my only concern. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I can already see some of you being concerned about this comparison, comparing the DIY pedal to the KTR instead of the Centaur. Well, first of all, I could not find a Centaur this fast. This belongs to a friend of mine and colleague at Thomann, Benchy. Thanks for the pedal. You'll get it back, don't worry. And there's one thing that almost everyone that I've heard or read their opinions on the KTR and the Centaur who had the chance to play both, they would say they are maybe not identical, but super close. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the price of these things, especially the Klon Centaur, which will go up to like $5,000-6,000 at this point, and these will go from like 800 to 2,000 bucks or even euros. I've seen one of these in Germany. Someone listed it for 2,000 euros, which is way over $2,000. What? One thing is very important, I think, to remember and keep in mind. The pedal isn't responsible for that price. It's not the pedal's fault. It's not even Bill's fault, who makes the clones. He even writes it on this one. Kindly remember, the ridiculous hype that offends so many is not of my making. He didn't want this to happen. He just wanted to make nice pedals, and way too many people wanted to get one. So then clearly some people will immediately have the dollar signs in their eyes and want to say, oh, okay, well, then I get one and I'll sell it for a huge profit. It's the same thing with the Analog Man King of Tone pedal, which is just a really good pedal. And Mike sells them, makes them and sells them for a realistic price. It's even cheaper than some of the not so rare pedals, which will sell for way over 300 bucks. Let's shortly talk about the tone of the KTR. I love it. It's a beautiful sounding pedal. This one has something to it. I'm not sure if it's those special germanium diodes, where Bill also writes here, these are essential, and there's an arrow pointing at these two tiny germanium diodes. He says this is the soul of a real Klon. And then here's my fun little Just a Klone, my DIY Klon pedal, which is a hand-wired, hand-built pedal, built out of really nice components, actually. These are not the cheapo parts. And it only cost me around 50 bucks for the enclosure and everything that's inside. Well, I'm saying that, but it's not really true. First of all, I wanted to make it pretty, so I had to buy spray cans, and I wanted certain colors and certain things and the decal and everything. So I spent a lot more money on the whole thing at the end. And I even painted the chicken head knobs because these were black, and I was like, nah. And that's not the only money I spent on this pedal. I built two other pedals before this one, and those two didn't work, which, if you think about it, means that you have to practice until you get like something like this done. I have soldered, I don't know how many hundreds or probably thousands of solder joints in my life as a guitar tech, swapping pickups or pots or fixing stuff. You solder a lot, and I do not have any issues with that. I never ever had a cold solder joint or anything that didn't work or was just too loose. At this point, it's safe to say that I know what I'm doing when I'm soldering something on a guitar. This is so different though. So different. You need a different tip, like soldering iron tip for this. You don't have space for anything. You have to be super exact with how much solder goes in those little holes. You have to know how long you are allowed to heat up a component until you have enough solder in the joint. You have to be super careful. And I made two fuss faces before this. Well, one with my son because he is 6 and he wanted to learn how to solder. I let him do most of it. So that doesn't really count. But the second one I did alone. It's a fuss face. It was a germanium fuss face circuit. Super easy, just a few components, and it didn't work. I still don't know exactly why. I probably fried the germanium transistor. It's not easy to build a pedal. That's what I'm trying to say. You will probably have to buy a couple of these kits until there's one that works, unless you're a trained electrician and you know exactly how to do these things. But if you're just kind of related to electronics or not at all related, just you're a newbie, don't think that you'll buy one of these and just throw it together, you know, spend 20 minutes on it and you have your super inexpensive, super awesome pedal. It's gonna need some time and practice. Quite a lot, actually. But this pedal is absolutely awesome. I love the way it sounds, and it has nice parts in it. It has the two germanium diodes. These are probably different diodes, but I mean, I really like the way the pedal sounds, so I don't really mind. It has high quality, made in Japan electrolytic capacitors. It has Neutrik jacks, and it has the DC-DC converter, which will increase the voltage inside the pedal for more headroom, more dynamics, and to give you more, well, enjoyable, pleasing playing feel. All right, you've heard both pedals. Let's do the comparison. Let's see how close they can get. And never mind the knobs. They will point at different directions. Like on the two pedals, maybe the gain is going to be around noon on that one and around 1 on this one. The values seem to be a little different. So I will set them up to sound as close as possible, whatever the knobs are showing me at that point. Okay, my thoughts on the Klon and on the clones of the Klon. Well, first of all, if you buy a Klon, if you want to get a Klon, you don't only buy its tone, the pedal's tone. You buy value. These pedals are collectible at this point. Even the KTRs are, especially the earlier ones, because I've heard some parts have been changed. So that's probably the reason why their prices skyrocketed like hell. It's a safe bet. There's no way their prices will drop at any point radically. So you can see it as an investment and you play it as well. It's the best sounding kind of an investment. Which brings me to my second point. Even though it was a lot of fun making a DIY clone of an expensive and rare pedal for myself, I do not like the idea of cloning someone else's product and selling it for profit. It's like stealing someone else's riff or the full song and trying to become famous with it. It's really not cool. Change something about it, tweak it, make it inspired by the Klon pedal, and that's awesome. That's totally legit, and that's how things evolve, right? If you get inspired by something and change it to your taste, that's totally fine, and I'm all for it. But on one-on-one clone and then making money with that, I don't know. If we only had inexpensive clones of stuff that already existed years ago, where would we evolve? We would just stop at this point and we would just have different kinds of clones of stuff that already existed 10, 20 years ago. I don't see the future in that thing. So I do believe that it's good that we have people, engineers, electricians, whatever, who know how to make a good pedal and how to make a good design, and they love what they're doing. They are guitar players as well. They just want to create something really cool and maybe even something new, which is probably the hardest thing of all of these. All right, guys, take it easy. Meet you down there in the comment section and see you next week in the new video. I'll be back. Bye-bye.